Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
It's coming to the end of December, and I can feel the presence of Christmas. Literally, I can feel the presence of Christmas. There are Christmas presents all around my feet while I'm standing at my little podcast booth in my office. I guess it's just part and parcel of having a couple of kids. Whole load of presents. So, how's your Christmas looking like it's shaping up to be?
Well, it's looking pretty good. I wouldn't say it like actually visually is represented the same way as yours, because obviously we don't have kids, so like for us there's no sort of like I wouldn't say Christmas spirit, but we don't have a tree up and sort of wrap presents under the tree. But yeah, it's just I guess a different different thing. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to having some time off. I guess we never really discussed that podcasting is certainly not our full-time job, so there's a lot of stuff that you and I do that's not this podcast, so it's just looking forward to having some time off.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we have these conversations because we have a big love for Apple. We like the interaction with listeners, and it's a good way to kind of like have someone to talk to about all this who's as passionate as me, because if I keep kind of like mouthing off about Apple and how great they are and the latest products to my coworkers, I think that they appreciate listening about it, but they're definitely not super keen like you and I. So, just before we start, I mentioned in the last episode that the D-Brand skin thing just wasn't sitting right with me. And I had a couple of JB gift cards, went and got the black leather case. And yeah, man, I loved it pretty instantly. I really thought I was going to take a long time to adjust to it, given the extra kind of bulk it adds to it. But I think the thing that really sells it for me, aside from the actual leather look itself and the feel in the hand, is just the way that it sits so well around the camera housing. That's, it's to me, seeing that makes it the best Apple phone case ever released.
Yeah, you don't really notice it. You don't get that same effect on the old cases. Obviously, there's like that recess where the flash was. And now, because the flash is built into a camera unit, it's just one solid like piece. I wouldn't go so far as to say that Apple designs the phones with the case in mind. It's more they design the case with the phone in mind. But you certainly get the sense that, at least with the 10, it was like all holistically viewed, because most people are getting it in a case, and it just with that case is seamless. It's really nice.
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate I know they had this on the previous cases, but the aluminium machined buttons, as opposed to just leather, just making it that more kind of tactile and clicky, I guess, so it feels a bit more like the actual phone itself. But yeah, man, I'm loving this, and it also has helped me. Like I loved using the phone without the case, really, really loved it, but I was just constantly polishing the edge, I constantly clean all my Apple products anyway, but I didn't want to stick it anywhere. I would put it in a cup holder, and I'd try and like put on a bit of an angle so it wasn't touching the bottom of the cup holder. And yeah, with this, I put it down to the phrase of case confidence. Instantly, as soon as I have this on, the case itself looks fresh. And yeah, it's just awesome that I can just kind of stick it down anywhere, and I don't have that worry about getting any little micro scratches or anything on the back of on the glass on the back.
Yeah, it's a lot better with the case, and that case specifically, black leather, will age really well. I just got rid of my one when I got rid of my 7, and yeah, it still looked really good. Like obviously it ages, but there's no like really bad discoloration or markings or sort of like wear and tear
Yeah. So certainly, if you're into the bright leather cases, certainly keep that in mind because that's going to be more of a factor. I was actually really wanting to get hold of the dark aubergine one, but black was all JB had. But I'm not. I'm not disappointed at all. This is actually a good choice.
Yeah, the Cosmos blue one is not like discolored at all yet. So usually like they start going dark pretty quickly. But the Cosmos, we compared to the one in the Apple Store on Sunday, which was yesterday, and it was exactly the same color. So that's been good. But my midnight blue one has certainly become more midnight than blue.
Okay, interesting. I guess it's better if it goes darker than having a light case that looks like it's gone dirty. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to kick this off with product perception and the big one, the almighty juggernaut, iMac Pro. It actually made its December release date, so it was available to order in Australia on December 15th. I'd originally kind of guessed it was going to be around the 20th, so not too far off. Currently has a 1 to 2 week delivery. Seems to be online only at the moment, but will be available in store soon. I haven't checked on that yet, but that's what it was like several days ago. I was genuinely surprised at the Australian pricing from $7,299. That comes only slightly a little bit above a US to Australian conversion plus GST, which is really good because I was expecting a $7,999. So, I mean, we know these are high prices and that, but and we're going to discuss the things like value for money and that. But what do you like? Is that still a staggering amount to you? I mean, it is, but did you think it was going to be higher than that?
Yeah, I thought it would be higher than that. I was at least thinking 7,499. I hadn't really done the exact conversion yet. I was just kind of thinking at a value sort of perspective. Look, if you look at it in absolute terms, and we sort of had this discussion before, it is a lot of money. I don't think it's an amount of money to scoff at in the same way that for, the iPhone 10, 1,500 is a lot of money, but what you're getting for both of those products and okay, to bring it back to iMac Pro, it is great value. This is not something where there's a lot of, the old sort of Apple tax, thing that they get. There really is no Apple tax in this because it is a workstation computer. It's not it's not meant to be something you put in your home office if you don't get money for what you're doing for it.
Exactly. Yep, definitely. It's we're going to cover that off real soon. But out of interest, I did what's the max configuration going to be? And it comes out to just a bit over $20,000. So, but I can actually see, say if you were working in the animation department in a big movie studio, and then you just had this sweet, all-in-one, super sleek, space gray iMac Pro. If you'd configured it out to the top, then you that's going to handle a good several years ahead in terms of that kind of high demand work in terms of resources. So yeah, if anyone, I highly doubt it, but if any listeners do end up speccing an iMac Pro out, or even getting an iMac Pro in general, please let us know because these are going to be a bit rare to kind of get our hands or eyes on. Which then leads me to several times of previous episodes I've mentioned, since WWDC, I mentioned that my friend was actually keen on it. Then he kind of went off it again and on it again. And yeah, we came out of our night screening of Star Wars. No spoilers, super awesome. And basically, yeah, the email come out, iMac Pro available to order, $7,299. And he's like, I'm not mad at that pricing. That's actually within his ballpark. So he's just got to get some finances together, but looking like a January order. But he's still definitely keen.
So what will he be using it for?
Okay, so he comes under the list of kind of several examples of who these could be for, and his comes under primarily music producer. So he has a real need for real-time plugins. He's had a lot of issue previously with trying to create his own music and bring in effects and that. And it basically, there being just a major issue with latency. and making it hard to record. And so for that aspect, from the audio aspect, you can basically have fast export of multi-track projects and up to 12.4 times faster in terms of the performance with real-time plugins. So that's his primary thing, and he's also a very keen photographer. So it's not like his current workstation has struggled with that, but considering he's shooting in kind of very high megapixel sort of photography and that real fine-tuned macro photography, that will certainly be there won't even be any worry in terms of, okay, well, this is going to take ages to try and save this file and that sort of thing. So his is kind of, he's definitely very very into the music production and all that sort of stuff. He's actually producing an album at the moment, so that's going to help really well with that. But his main thing was, he was always thinking, okay, my current computer's struggling. He's always kind of been using PCs, right? So this is going to be his first foray into Mac. But he was just sick of the tower. He was just sick of having this whole built to order PC hunky big tower there. And yeah, I think just the overall design, and then having it all kind of set up and essentially future proofing his work, because he's never kind of gone all that way to the top in terms of spending. He's kind of only ever spent as much as he's needed at that time. So I think this is kind of his big leap into sort of creating a future-proof setup, and a big leap into a new platform being Mac. But he's got things like iPad Pro, got iPhone, so he's going to have that level of continuity and all that sort of thing. Which is good.
On future-proofing, one of the things that's sort of been unclear, because there's no RAM door, is it's been sort of said that it's not upgradable, and that's in a sense true. It's not user upgradable, so you can't just go buy RAM and put it in yourself. But what you can do is get Apple to and other third parties to put in more RAM for you. So
yes,
they won't not ever do it in the future. It's not buy once and that's what you got. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned before, as soon as he places the order, I'm going to be there. As soon as it arrives, I'm going to be there. He's probably going to want to kick me out of his house or something. Anyway, so who else is the iMac Pro for, Nick?
Well, so the thing that I think of it is it being for devs, so they're able to run multiple virtual machines and just compile the apps really quickly. And then obviously looking at my neck of the woods, it would be really great for sort of machine learning and statistical models and stuff. If you're running thousands of models that you're then combining later on, that can be an overnight process. Something like this that you can distribute that process would be really, really cool. So definitely it speaks to me in terms of what I do. And then just branching off of that also for scientists and researchers who also need to use massive data sets and complex simulations. So pretty near to what I'm doing. And then as you mentioned, just photographers, and then of course the famous video editors. You know how they the photographers and video editors are always what Apple thinks are, or always what people think of as being Apple's pro market, but not necessarily true. And then 3D designers who obviously have to work with massive models and need fast rendering.
Exactly. And there's a whole pile of stats on the site and comparisons you can check out there, even down to specific programs. So if any of what we've mentioned is in your field of expertise, I'm sure you've probably checked it out already, but definitely give it a consideration. And as Nick said, there is no idea of the Apple tax so much with this. Even video reviewers themselves have stated that basically they've tried to spec out a PC with the same sort of parts, and Apple said in WWDC presentation, it basically comes out much for much price-wise there. Plus, then you've got to take into account the very, very awesome display and the all-in-one design. So if you're after something that is definitely big on the performance while also actually being a lot more portable, not that you're going to be carrying it around, but certainly more portable than a tower screen setup, and has that very, very awesome iMac Pro and even the current iMac's display. Yeah, to me, it's the ultimate all-in-one. If you fall within the category of this sort of professions, definitely give it consideration. If you really just love your towers and you don't care about all-in-one design, it's not going to be an attractive option there. Obviously, if you prefer the PC platform, there's that too. And yeah, it's really comes down to the performance needs to consider. So, do some research, figure out the sort of type of benchmarks that you need, and you very well could, and I'm thinking this will apply to a lot of people, that the general iMac line that they refreshed in the middle of the year is perfectly going to suit most professionals' requirements.
Oh, absolutely. This is, again, it's not something just for, sitting in your study for like work and email, but wanting to be fancy. This is really for people that earn an income from the use of this machine. So it's like, I think people really need to separate that sort of view of it. It's not like a MacBook Pro that is actually for everyone. So, sure, we'd all love it. And the space gray color, is great. I've seen a few things around, on Twitter where the one guy was saying, well, basically you could sell your space gray accessories and your black lightning cable and nearly make enough money to pay for the rest of the iMac Pro if you're willing to separate from those accessories.
This was the funniest thing, is that what stole the headlines not so much was, hey, iMac Pro's announced. It was suddenly overtaken by, hey, black lightning cable. So a lightning to USB-A cable comes with iMac Pro and it's black. And they've kind of gone a little step further with the fill around the pins is also black. It looks cool. I'm happy with my white ones, but do you have much demand for color matched cables to your devices?
Well, now that I've got iPhone 10, I'm kind of keen on the wireless view, and there is the like black wireless charging dock. But one of the things that I'm really, really holding out for is the Air Power Mat, which is obviously only coming in white, which I actually don't mind because my bedside table is white and my desk at work is white. So, in that sense, I think I've missed the boat on needing color match cables, but it would have been cool while I needed it.
To me, seeing white, it's iconically Apple. I would love if you had color match options. Hey, black would be cool. Space gray would be cool. Whatever. But I don't have I'm not ranting and raving about this black lightning cable because at the end of the day, they do the same thing. And I'm just so used to the white accessories that to me screams Apple. But hey, we're certainly welcome any changes. Now, speaking of, other releases, they actually came out with a 0.8 meter Thunderbolt 3 cable, Apple's official one. Interestingly, this is a year after the MacBook Pro has come out. I've never had the need for a Thunderbolt 3 cable yet. But was it a surprise to you that this wasn't available at MacBook Pro launch and they've left it this long?
Yeah, I actually hadn't even considered the fact that this wasn't already around. That was
exactly, because I wasn't looking for it,
Yeah, exactly. Well, I suppose like my computer's USB-C only, which, you see, the thing that gets really confusing about it is that it's USB-C and Thunderbolt 3 have the same actual like physical connector. So
yeah,
it's actually quite confusing on what the different specs are, but Apple is way ahead of that game and have come out ahead with this Thunderbolt 3 cable. Apparently the spec on the Thunderbolt 3, even at the 0.8 meter length, is pretty difficult to get, and that's why it may have taken longer or a while to get in that length. So that's I guess a bit beyond my actual like hardware understanding, but Apple on the tech specs page, or they used to have it, I think they might have removed it, but Oh, it's on the features, highlights on this cable. They mentioned that it's got an etched Thunderbolt logo, helps it stand out from other cables. So, yeah, that I found really funny.
Yeah, that's like a massive feature. But hey, I mean, I love little things like etched logos on that. If there's, if you've got a big pile of cables and you just want one way to differentiate it, just look for that little lightning bolt. So
it is a tiny lightning bolt. Yeah.
It's I guess it's the equivalent of having like a Nike shirt that's got a tiny little tick on it. It's like it's because it's there, you feel good. So. Just list off a few third-party accessories that have come out since iMac Pro has been announced. So there's the Satechi Clamp Hub Pro. It's kind of like this interesting USB-C hub that mounts underneath the chin. So it's kind of gives you front access and additional ports. Not that it's short of ports. There's plenty of ports on the back of iMac Pro. 12 South have the High Rise Pro, which was featured in Marcus Brownlee's video, which I found kind of confusing in the sense that if you didn't know that the iMac Pro just had the standard base, because he didn't introduce that at the start of the video, I'd imagine people would have seen that and thought, is that actually part of the computer? So anyway, basically what it is, it's an adjustable stand, suits iMac and iMac Pro, has a padded leather top, a reversible walnut and metal front grille, and it has its own gear garage, which basically you can store wallets, hard drives, etc. So that actually looks pretty cool. And 12 South, they originally had this thing called the backpack, which is like shelving on the back of your iMac Pro, and they've just released it in matte black to kind of tie more in with that darker theme.
Yeah, the thing that I really don't like about the High Rise Pro is it kind of looks like if you don't see it up close, it looks like a cage around the stand. Because you don't really have a sense of the scale, it's kind of difficult to actually see how it all looks. I'm not a huge fan of it. It just looks like you've caged in the bottom of the iMac Pro.
It's like the equivalent of like the wheel clamp if on your car or something.
Yeah, it looks like an anti-theft device rather than something that really fits in with it. Yeah,
I guess it's one way to keep your iMac Pro under house arrest. You don't want it to leave the home.
It's not for your home, Simon. It's not for your home. It's for your office. And if your home happens to be your office, that's fine. But it's not for your home.
I do like the reversible grille at the front. That was pretty cool. But yeah, at first I was just kind of like, why didn't he just not have that in the video? Like, this is the first, in terms of a high profile YouTuber. This is like everyone's jumping to this video because it's like, well, first video, look. And he's got that on the bottom of it. I'm like, come on, you could have just shown that later. But anyway, doesn't matter. If you're into it, 12 South make great products. I've got a couple of theirs, so could be for you. But this then begs the question. Okay, so MacBook Pro really pushed Touch Bar. There hasn't been a huge amount in the ways of developers embracing it. There's a bit in terms of stuff like Photoshop and GarageBand and that I've used. I still do use it, not as much as I'd like. It's kind of a way if you just sort of got to remind yourself that it's there sometimes. And because I've got the Apple Watch unlock, I don't often use the Touch ID. But when I do use Touch ID, it's very quick. So then this leads me to the question, why didn't they or will they release a Touch ID / Touch Bar keyboard?
Yeah, it's really unclear, right? Because they really have been pushing it, but the Touch Bar kind of confuses me. Like, I don't own one and I'm not against it. I think it's a good idea, but you kind of have to look down at it to make sure what you're pressing is what you're looking for, right? And the whole point for me on a keyboard is you're not looking at the keyboard, you're supposed to be looking at the screen, which, like, there's a whole bunch of conflicting factors where Microsoft, in my opinion, doesn't have it right because you don't want your ARM app all the time. But then I don't think Apple has necessarily nailed it either because you don't want to be looking down at the keyboard the whole time. You've got the big, beautiful display, right? And especially, so it's kind of easy on a laptop where it's just at the bottom of the display, quick glance down and get what you want and then back up again. But on an iMac Pro, that is a significant difference in eye angle from the desk itself up to your content, which potentially could be at the top left of the screen or top of the screen. So, it's not like right there. So I think I don't know if it would fit in that well. I'm just assuming they've tried it and just haven't felt that it works what they like as they would intend, or they're going to launch it next year, probably with the Mac Pro.
Yeah, I I'm starting to lean towards thinking they may just, if there isn't a push soon for more touch bar action, I feel like they may actually just kind of skip over it altogether once they release the MacBooks that have the actual keyboard where the actual each key is kind of like its own little screen. Which they acquired that Australian startup. It's all kind of like e-ink style technology, but where kind of like the entire keyboard becomes
state dependent. The one thing on that though, the only like advantage I think of them for doing that would be supply chain. Is basically you just need one keyboard to ship wherever you want in the world, and then like for Chinese characters you could just write on the whole big keyboard area. But like I don't know tactilely how that would work. It would be quite difficult.
Yeah.
So to go back to your point, do they go all in and say, okay, well, everything's now touch bar and, nothing to complain about? Or do they roll back and say, look, we didn't get that option we wanted with touch bar and this is a great experience anyway, we won't change it?
I basically think that. I don't think they're going to change it, and I think they're basically just going to, keep releasing however many pieces of Mac hardware until Face ID is built into a Mac display. So that will cover the Touch ID factor, and then I just think, unfortunately, that Touch Bar just wasn't as the big hit that they wanted it to be. I really, really loved the idea behind it. I love using it. I was using it actually the other night for some drum programming. That was pretty fun. But I guess at the end of the day, yes, you have to actively, not in all cases, because there are some things you do that kind of become muscle memory, but because what's displayed on it is changing so often. If you'll notice something new, like, oh, that's cool, but then you have to actively remember that was there. It has been good in the sense of having like that little Siri reminder, but again, Siri on Mac, I use nowhere near as much as on my iOS devices. So yeah, I mean that wraps up essentially where we're at with iMac Pro. I hopefully can give you some sort of review or hands-on impressions if my friend goes with the purchase come start of next year. But that moves us on to the water cooler. Around the end of each year, there are app awards and this is the best of 2017. So now, interesting with this one, there are some different apps awarded for particular countries. So these are only the ones that apply to Australia, and we're going to cover just the apps and games awarded. There are stuff like trends and songs and that, but what I just want to do is give our feedback on any ones that we like, any ones that we've tried, or that we're keen to check out. So just starting with the apps of the year. Calm for iPhone, which is like a meditation sleep assistance app. That's for free. Affinity Photo for iPad, which is pro photo editing app for $30.99, which I gave my impressions on in a previous episode. On Mac, we had Aurora HDR, which is a HDR exclusive photo editor at the higher price tag, but in terms of pro apps, not really that high, of $124.99. On Watch, we had iTranslate Converse, which is like real-time voice translation, kind of. I'll get onto that afterwards. That's for free. There is a pro tier, though. And on Apple TV, we had Tastemade, which is like recipes, cooking classes, chef training, etc. So out of any of these, got anything to say?
I have not tried any of them, and the only one that I ever want to try is Affinity Photo. So
I was looking into each of them. Calm certainly has a really nice design to it. I think these sort of things, like with the Breathe app on phone, anything that can compel you to take a break and use it and kind of, just get a good breath and a refocus on things. That's cool. Might check that out. Affinity Photo, so I'd purchase that as soon as I'd got my iPad Pro. I use it relatively often. It's really fun. There's a few things I want to kind of figure out with it, because to me it's like it's what Photoshop on iPad should be. So that's why I like it so much, and that's why I'm drawn more to seeing they're coming out with their own desktop publishing app soon. They kind of like previewed it, so they're really heading for Adobe's jugular pretty much. And because I've used Adobe exclusively, this is quite an interesting kind of experience for me, and I've certainly been impressed by what they've released so far. HDR photo editing, hey, if that's your thing, awesome. It certainly looks cool, but I'm not going to head out and drop a sweet 125 on it. I tried out the iTranslate Converse. So I had the iTranslate just general watch app, and I thought it would, I'd speak to my watch and have the right language selected, and then it would say back to me what the translation was. I don't know if I'm doing anything wrong, but what it's doing is it's just showing what the translated words are on the screen. So I'm guessing it's just a way for you to speak to your watch and then read what's on the screen. It's sort of like, I had in my head that it would be like Google Translate.
Translation works on Google Pixel with, it says it's basically, okay, let's say when you first speak, it translates it, you speak into the earphones, it translates it and shows on your phone to the other person, and they talk back, and then it reads it into your ear. So I guess the idea then is like you to be speaking and to show them, but you can't really turn your wrist around and show someone your watch. So, it's not very useful for that technique. And then if you're reading it back, well, sometimes my attempts at a foreign language are even worse than if I were to just speak English to them. So, yeah. I
definitely, I need to give it a better go. The only thing that put me off was that the actual animation on screen was really kind of choppy. I thought this was going to be this smooth sort of pulsing, icon to signal that it's listening to you, ready to record, and it's there, but you go to do the translation, it's like it drops to 10 frames a second or something. I was like, ugh.
You'd think that Apple would work with people who are the app of the year. I actually don't know how it's decided. It's not just popularity of downloads, right? It's that in combination.
It's sort of judged as well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd think that, I don't know. Well, I suppose they have their own bugs to worry about, but yeah, I don't know. If it's like a 10 frames per second, I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's like just that quick little animation, but the actual translation time was relatively quick. Like, not too long that, you'd give up, but not quite as snappy as I wanted it to be. But it was, it's great enough at picking up my input, which I'd expect anyway from things like, Apple Watch's dictation. But what it did strangely, I don't know whether they're trying to think of the use case, is, I was like, oh yeah, I've tried out Appy a few times, I've had enough of it, I've just head back to my watch face, and there's a little microphone button at the top to signal that the microphone's on, and when I tapped it or whatever, it would go back into the app. So then I went to the apps, the dock, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just remove the app and it's going to close it or whatever. And the microphone was still there, and it was just really bugging me, and I had to end up playing some music or something through the watch to get it to go away.
Yeah, I think that's like a new sort of, it's supposed to be an optimization in watchOS 4. So basically they changed the way that watchOS handles the frontmost app. So if it's like a media sort of app, it will stay in frontmost for like 7 or 8 minutes or something, and there are a whole bunch of rules and complications around how that works. But I think that was what was happening there, was even though you had sort of put it in background, the operating system hadn't, and so that's probably why it had that little microphone there.
Yeah, I can see how that sort of thing would be an advantage if you were in another country and you just constantly wanted to get back to the app quickly, just be able to tap that bit on your watch face. So that's cool, but for a second I was like, oh no, it's always listening. This is Google Home Mini launch all over again. But yeah, it was fine. I guess I expected, because it was awarded, I had higher expectations of it.
But this is something we'd expect to be in the built into the operating system in the next few years. They've already sort of integrated translation with Siri. I think even HomePod will have translation as one of its features, and so you expect this sort of stuff to become an operating system thing. But moving on, because we do have some really cool stuff to talk about later. Just the game of the year on iPhone was Splitter Critters, which is a QT puzzler, and you swipe to split the worlds, and that's $4.49. Hidden Folks, which is the iPad game of the year.
That looks cool.
I haven't actually seen it, but it features hand-drawn landscapes, sort of like Where's Wally?
Yeah, it's basically the whole thing is like black and white, and it's got that kind of jiggly edged line work that you get in Where's Wally, because you're basically looking for the character within the landscape. It just reminded me of Where's Wally, so I just love the art style and that nostalgic feel, because I just love Where's Wally so much.
Yeah. And then The Witness on Mac. Have you seen that one?
I just sort of, I checked it out, and it was kind of like this, the design was this sort of cell shaded look, and it was like an explorer puzzle, like you're dumped on an island, and you basically got to explore it and, discover basically make sense of where you are and put the pieces together. There's plenty of games like that. I don't play games on my Mac, but if you do, that goes for $62.99. So I think in the scheme of what people spend on games, it's probably not too bad. And then watch games, Micropolis. You can build cities on your watch. I can't get into the watch games, man. What about you?
I think I've tried one, which was kind of like one of those ones where it's a dialogue, and then you get to like choose 2 points at every point in the dialogue. And I think I played it like for 2 minutes, 2 different times, and that was it. I just cannot ever do watch games, and I don't think I ever. And I'm fine with that. Like I'm fine with that. It's just that, I don't understand how some people do. I don't understand.
Yeah, just holding up your arm for that long. I think you just purely just have to rest on a table or something. But there you go. And we had Framed 2 on Apple TV, which is like a noir puzzle game in that comic book style form. Goes for $7.99. So, yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't give too much in the sense of the game side of things. But if there are any keen app gamers out there, definitely give us your feedback and what you think was your favorite game of the year and what was your favorite app. Definitely. So there you go. Pushing on to uniquely Apple. Shazam has been purchased by Apple. So obviously most people would know what Shazam is, but if you don't, it's the popular music tagging and recognition app. Purchased for a cool $400 million, which may be their third or fourth biggest acquisition.
It was their third, by like a margin of like 2 million.
Yes,
yeah, it was really close.
Okay, now this Shazam was already used within Siri. It was actually better to use at the start, and then you now have to actually reference, what is it? You have to reference what song is playing.
You have to actually ask, but beforehand you, this was just actually only in the iOS 8 betas. You could just hold the Siri button and it would recognize the song, but I was thinking a lot about that, and I actually think that that's the main reason that Apple's bought Shazam. I think there are obviously a whole bunch of reasons, but effectively, in order for that to happen, when you just hold up and don't give a command, it needs to recognize that or suspect that you haven't given a command, and then send that sound signature through to Shazam for them to do the matching and send back the result, right? And the thing with that is that you'd have a lot of queries which are genuine Siri queries, which are just going straight through to Shazam, and probably shouldn't be sitting on Shazam servers. So obviously Apple is really huge into privacy, and I think everyone would suspect, because it has the Shazam logo, that when you explicitly ask what song's playing, that then that listening would go through to Shazam. So that sort of use case is obvious, but it's not entirely seamless. So I think that in order to like integrate and just own that whole space, it just makes sense for them to buy them. Obviously, there's a huge advantage in, I think it was like 20% or some high figure of iTunes purchases were funneled through via Shazam on iOS, right? So a large proportion of their purchases are referred by Shazam. So, when you're Apple and you can buy that whole stack, you should, because they won't have to pay their referral fees, and then can keep, they can just push that funneling in a way that they couldn't as like a client or as a company that worked with Shazam. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what they'll do with this, but I wonder, like, my view is that it won't be on Android anymore. Do you think that they will keep it on Android?
Maybe just to prevent that big outrage, they might just keep the Shazam app, running as is. They might have like a little part of the team that can be like, okay, just to keep this Android one alive. But the real advancements or the real benefits that you'll see is whatever they do with it involving Siri and Apple Music. I'm even thinking they could add a little quick action when you 3D touch the Apple Music icon to just be like, what's this song or whatever. Just little things like that they can put in. But so in saying that, okay, so this has happened this time of year. That's a good 6 months until next WWDC. Are you expecting some sort of Shazam related demo?
Definitely. 100%. For sure, because they already work with them, right? So there's already like a link between the operating system and Shazam, the company, already. So I don't see like a whole need to rework giant things that couldn't be done in the next 6 months. So yeah, for sure.
Cool. I can't wait. So I'm going to switch it up to core focus and to follow on with my Star Wars hype at the moment. I'm naming this little segment Return of the J-Ive. Yes, Jony Ive has returned. He's always been part of Apple, but he's returned to his previous design management role at Apple. So he, of course, if you don't know Jony Ive, why are you listening to this? But basically, so when he did leave in 2015, was appointed the role of Chief Design Officer. And then along with that, there was the VP of UI Design, Alan Dye, and the VP of Industrial Design, Richard Howarth, were brought into the picture to create this kind of like ultimate team of three. They've now sort of just been removed off the site. The whole timing of this really ties in with the Apple Park completion. Was this simply something so Jony Ive could focus on Apple Park? Or was there the other thought of, he's setting himself up for his leave from Apple, his retirement, and now suddenly he's interested in products again and he's come back. I'm going more with the Apple Park side of things. What about yourself?
Well, the thing about the Apple Park thing is it just doesn't make sense because it just wouldn't... I don't understand why they would have only done it for a short period, because I can understand why Apple would do that, but I don't understand why the other guys would just go for like knowing that they're going to have this like claim to fame and then this giant fall in a very, very near space, especially considering that Apple Park is already delayed. So this only 2 years should have been only 1 year in that sense. And so for me, it doesn't just like all add up as neatly as Apple wants us to think. I'm going a little bit conspiracy there, I know, which is...
But I mean, they would still be at Apple.
Yeah, they would still be at
right?
Apple, but I mean, they were on the executive page and then now they aren't anymore. Like, it's just like, it in the public eye is a demotion, as it's just not that same level of fame that they were, and they were reporting directly to Tim Cook. So, I just think that if it was like a secondment, then I don't think they would have been put on the page and for it to have been two roles, because it seemed very obvious that they then had like a clear distinction between their roles and a new way of structuring it. And then all of a sudden, all of that's gone and just rolled back up into Jony. To me, it seems more likely that he has like a thirst to come back and do that. And a energization. He's been sort of reincarnated by.
I'm picturing like Jony Ive with like flaming wings
Johnny.
or something.
Yeah, like a phoenix born again.
Yes.
The baptism of fire, which was the smart battery case and all the other things that have come out. But
man. Yeah. I can see why the Apple Park timing seems like an easier way to explain the whole reasoning behind it. I certainly, like, just from what you said then, I can see why that does seem a bit odd. It's like, why would you suddenly pull out these two executives only just to axe them after initially a year, but then actually turn out to be 2 years? So I can't really give like a defined, you know, my take on exactly what I think it was. I do like what you're saying about he probably thought, okay, no, I've been in this hands-on role for so long in Apple, you know, maybe it's time to like step back a bit, kind of enjoy other things like Christmas trees, and yeah, and then as you say, he's kind of like got this this new thirst to come back. Maybe it was like maybe the success of the iPhone 10 really kind of sparked it for him.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, the excitement around that, and knowing sort of what's coming there. Sure, he may well have wanted to get involved there. There could be other projects at Apple that he's sort of now decided to come back specifically to work on. I know people are throwing out the car, and I don't think it's the car, but I do think you know, there is they're always working on really exciting things, and why wouldn't you be a part of it? He's made for life. You know, he really just like gets to go there and decide what he works on, and has a lot of sway and is like a real celebrity even within Apple. So, you know, there's a lot of like stuff that I'm sure that he enjoys, but I think that if you look forward 5 to 10 years and sort of think of Apple in that sense, if Tim Cook is not around by choice at that stage, and Jony ends up being CEO, I think that this sort of will make a lot more sense to me, because Tim Cook has said that he's grooming a number of people to be CEO. Obviously, Angela Ahrendts was CEO of Burberry, so has some CEO experience, and people are touting her to possibly be the next CEO. Obviously, when Tim Cook became CEO, Jony was in line there. So their whole, you know, I think that will be an interesting thing to watch, is like the successor to Tim Cook, and that may be 20 years away. He may, and I think he's capable of running Apple for many years to come. But if it's sooner rather than later, and Jony ends up being there, I think that this will become clearer.
Yeah, it is interesting, because I've always I've actually never even considered Jony for the role, just because he is like the design guy, like being the head of. I mean, okay, yes, that's actually a bit stupid to say, because okay, Steve Jobs, you know what I mean? But just with being so comfortable with the Tim Cook and the type of guy he is and the type of things he does at Apple, I've always I've more lent towards the thought of it being someone a bit more maybe having a bit more of like a global role, a bit more of like a business related role, like Angela. So
yeah, or even obviously I think it's Jeff Williams, you know,
yes,
the CEO of he's of course another like a successor option.
Yeah, it's that's the only thing, is like, to me it doesn't feel like, hey, if Jony Ive did become CEO, that'd be great, but to me it seems like he wouldn't want to. I don't know. I don't know the guy. I'm just going on a hunch. He lives so much in this kind of like design world. It's like, imagine packing in all the other stuff to do with Apple on top of that. So
I agree with you. Look, you know, everyone criticizes Tim Cook as not being a product guy, and yet is evidently a successful businessman. And then on the other end, you'll have the other criticisms, which is, can you run the business that is Apple, the behemoth? Just because you can, you know, draw pretty well and have some good ideas. So obviously neither of those things are true in their isolation. And there'll always be challenges, but yeah, I guess, I don't think anyone would turn down the opportunity to be CEO of Apple.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that Jeff Williams one, but anyway, that'll come for episode 456 of
hopefully not. I really like Tim Cook. I really, really like him. I hope he doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, cool, definitely. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up with appetizers. There's been a lot of want from Nick and I and so many people for good podcast playback on the Apple Watch. Did we get it with the Workouts Plus app? Unfortunately, no. Spoiler alert. So basically, Workouts Plus is a new free watch app that allows podcast playback on the watch. Now, this is interesting for me because it's going to be my first workout without the phone. Now I've got Series 3, so I've got the GPS in there. I was very excited at the prospect of this and then very quickly let down. So the podcast episode transfer was about 15 minutes. I did expect it to be, a decent amount of time. I tested this on an episode of Applesize, which is around an hour long typically. Now, the stupid thing about this, though, is that I started the transfer and it said transferring. And I sat there for a good 10 minutes. Nothing was happening. I thought, maybe I need to open the Watch app, and then the transfer percentage started appearing. So it was 15 minutes from that point. So that was a bit of it's a bit odd. Now, the worst part about this is that the podcast playback is completely separate from any other Watch audio playback. So even stuff like interaction with AirPods. So the autoplay pause does not work with it. If I paused it manually and then double tapped the AirPods, it didn't continue the podcast within Workouts++. It then just started playing a song on my Apple Watch. So I could essentially have 2 bits of audio running at the same time. And then on top of that...
That's bizarre.
Yeah, and then I know. And then on top of that, it's restricted by whatever volume the now playing on your watch is set at. So the last time I had something that was playing on my phone and I lowered the volume, which lowered the volume of now playing on the watch to around 30%. I went to go play the podcast in Workouts++ and I couldn't go any higher than 30%. And so then it prompted me to change it in now playing. Okay, I thought that's cool. Went to now playing, put the volume to full. Still stuck on 30% in Workouts++. I then had to close whatever was stuck on now playing, or the last thing I played on my phone, had to force quit Apple Music for it then to clear now playing on the watch and then allow me to up the volume on a blank now playing to then allow me to up the volume in Workouts++.
It's just a crazy... Yeah.
I was like, what? I was so frustrated because I was so excited. I was just trying to get ready for this workout. I was like, what the hell's going on? I'm just, okay. So you have to start a workout to even reach the podcast playback. So there's that. But I guess it is a workout app.
Yeah,
so I
will say they did say that up front in the title.
Yeah. The playback was fine, but I had some random occurrences. So over a half-hour workout, at 4 points, the Applesize episode I was listening to suddenly sped up to about like double times, and that lasted for like a few seconds, and then it went back to normal, which I've never had from any other audio playback from the watch. So that's quite strange. The UI is okay, but yeah, the overall experience was too frustrating. It's good to have the option there. I guess it is free. I can't complain about that, but it just does not play. It's so separate from everything else. It doesn't play nice with anything else. I removed it very swiftly. Please, Apple, bring Podcast app to the watch. Just watch OS 5.
I can't understand why it shouldn't be a WatchOS 4.2.3 and out tomorrow, because, it's something that they push in every product from the iPod Nano to the HomePod to the iMac Pro are all capable of podcast playback. And yet, if a 10 pole of their product roadmap does not have such basic functionality, it just boggles my mind. I don't understand it, especially on WatchOS 3. Watch Series 3. We've now got cellular, so we can stream it on the go, so I don't have to worry about syncing these huge files that take 15 minutes or half an hour or however long. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Just put it on and go. It's just like, makes so much sense. They should have made it at least with Series 3. So yeah, the thing is that podcasts are becoming way, way more popular than they were
huge
2, 3, 4 years ago. And so, yeah, sure, when the watch was launched, okay, fine. But now, everyone is listening to podcasts. So many of my colleagues, you put them onto one podcast, and then all of a sudden they're listening to new ones every single day.
As soon as radio stations had started pushing dedicated podcasts, you knew that there was a big shift in how people consume this type of conversational audio. It's really taken off, and the iTunes Connect, the Apple Podcast app, are massive. Just it's a no-brainer. And yeah, just fingers crossed for a point update, or at the very latest WatchOS 5. But Anyway, that wraps up the end of episode 41 of Apple Slice. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can search Apple Slice Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
We'd also like it if you could subscribe by searching Apple Slice in your podcast player. You can also visit appleslice.com.au and see our page at ozcastnetwork.com. That's AUScast, network.com.
There you go. Our very first episode as part of a podcast network. That's pretty cool. And anything else to add to this?
I just can't wait for my iMac Pro to arrive, 27th of December.
I never asked you that. Are you going to do a surprise purchase with a massive plastic bag?
It would be a massive surprise, literally and figuratively, but not only to you, but to me too. So we'll see.
Oh, can't wait to see one. Alrighty, Nick. I'll catch you in the next episode.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.